Now more than ever, we're seeing an amazing surgence towards businesses looking to reinvent themselves or innovate or just create a different experience in relation to the way they deliver their product or service or offering or whatever it might be. There's never a bad time to do that. There's plenty of opportunity out there at the moment for guys to reinvent themselves within their businesses. And we're seeing some really, really interesting examples of how trade businesses are doing this successfully. Crisis breeds opportunity. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. And I certainly believe that in the climate that we're currently in, it's an amazing opportunity for us as business owners and entrepreneurs to get out there and really start to redesign and reevaluate the way that we have been delivering our services and tweak it so that we can deliver it in a safer, less risky sort of manner to suit the environment that we're currently in. In this podcast, we're talking about innovation, and it's a topic that we've spoken about in the past on the podcast, and it's a topic that is now more than ever becoming more and more relevant. It's not that it never was relevant, it's just now that people are a little bit more receptive to it. And I encourage you guys to take on board, first of all, what we talk about within this podcast, but second of all, certainly have some proactive thinking in the space of, okay, how will this apply to me? How can I go back to the whiteboard, go to the drawing board, sit down there and redesign some of the things that we do, if not all of them, to help us transition not so much through the stage that we're here with this COVID-19 pandemic, but like thinking how to come out of this stronger and better with a better business model and better processes and a more innovative approach to the way that we do business. I know you're going to love this podcast. The gentleman that we've got on the show here has been on the show a number of times before, talking about the topic of innovation in various different levels within business. This conversation is highly relevant to any small business owner, to anyone in business at the moment. And I know you guys are going to love this. If you do enjoy it, go share it with someone, forward them the email you've received, or tag them in the Facebook post or whatever. Let's get the word out there, because we want to see you guys succeed. And we know we're just trying to equip you with the right tools in order to do so. Anyway, guys, enjoy the show. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
G'day folks, Matt here from the Site Shed, and welcome back to the podcast. Joining us today for another episode, I have my friend and past guest on the show, Nils Vesk from Ideas with Legs. Nils, welcome back.
Thanks for having us, Matt. Thanks everyone, guys.
Folks, if you may be familiar with Nils' podcasts, if you have been following for a while, he was back on the Innovate Your Business series in episode 88, 89 and 90, and also we had a conversation about innovative thinking in episodes 149 and 150. I actually saw one of your emails, Nils, come through the other day. For those of you guys that don't subscribe to that, go check it out. It's pretty cool, especially in this landscape, because it was talking about, a lot of guys are having to reinvent themselves. And for the listeners and viewers out there, it's currently the 16th of April in 2020, and we're kind of in this weird little COVID-19 space at the moment. So I thought it would be a good time to get Nils on the show to talk a bit about his expertise in what you trade business owners out there can go about innovating and reinventing yourselves to a degree. I know a lot of you guys are doing this, which is fantastic. I'm a firm believer, Nils, that crisis breeds opportunity, and a lot of these guys are out there reinventing themselves now in a way that's going to make their business a lot more sustainable. And so you typically see coming out of these global events, businesses that are a lot more systemized, have better processes in place, have better procedures, are operating leaner because of whatever reasons. They've been able to get rid of some dead wood, or they've been able to implement technologies that replace staff. They've been able to shut down offices and all this kind of stuff. So I think conversation about reinvention is very relevant because, for choice of better words, I suppose it's a way they can kind of hedge their bets. And, maybe back in, only 6 months ago, they may have been very focused on, one specific thing with that whole mentality of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But now they're like, well, that's not going to fly at the moment. We need to be proactive and productive in the space of thinking about how we can really, in times like this, still stay in business. So, mate, thanks for joining us. Much appreciated.
Hey, thanks for having us. And just piggybacking on what you were talking about there, a couple of things come to mind straight away. And the first one is that the playing field has been leveled. It's a really level playing field for so many businesses now, which is kind of pretty exciting because there are big companies that have had to rethink, but also means a lot of these smaller players that are sort of going, well, actually, we've got this chance. We've got a chance because everything's changed. And another thing that kind of popped in my mind, a lot of people think when we have a crisis that it's, an evolution perspective, people say it's the survival of the fittest, Darwin's theory of evolution. I've got a big brother who always likes to rib me. He goes, Dr. Peter Vesk is his name. And he always goes, Nils, you know nothing about evolution, because he's an ecologist.
Right.
And he said, it's not the species that the fittest that survive, it's those that are most adaptable to change. Right. And so if you want to look at reinvention, we've got to get good at change. And if we don't, we're going to fall behind.
I mean, I suppose you and I are kind of in that business space where we're always evolving. Like, it's everything we do every year. There's a new technology, there's a new method, there's a new delivery process, there's a new whatever. So it's kind of not that uncommon to us. But in a lot of the guys out there that we're speaking to today in the trades, it is kind of different to them because they've always done something a certain way and it's always worked for them. And now they're kind of having to think outside of the box a bit. And I know from the conversations we've had so far and with, some of the guys we've been working with to help them through these times, a lot of that focus has been on helping them evolve their procedures and not so much the delivery of their service as such. I mean, you go and clear a block drain, but how do you attack that project now in a way that can mitigate risk and reduce fear from your customers? Like, how can you make them feel comfortable with you coming into their home or environment and not be a risk of passing on, some sort of whatever it is, virus through that face-to-face transaction that we typically have seen the only way we deliver our service over the years. So it's a lot of work around the process side of things. I'd be pretty keen to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's, whenever we talk with the business about what can they reinvent, we talk about 4 different areas. The first one is how they go about building their product or, building their business. The second is around how they go about their processes or processing their product or their business. The next one is around how do they actually go about selling what their business is, and then how do they go about delivering. So process, as you said, is an absolute, crucial key, and that's where often we make the biggest change. And funnily enough, when it comes to selling or valuing a business, how a business is valued is the multiple of the EBIT, the earnings before income tax, but that's based on how good the processes of a business are and their ability to scale. So at the end of the day, you might have people, but if you don't have processes, they're going to go elsewhere. But coming back to that process thing, and you're talking about how people are expecting something different when, because of this sort of fear of contamination. We have an acronym that we use, which is called SCRAMBLE. And if you think about what that word means, if you can remember those old World War II movies where it's like, scramble, and the guys with the moustaches would get into their planes and they'd fly off. And that's kind of one of the things. It's about how do we, respond in a case of an emergency, but the process that we do that. At the same time, it also means how do we sort of scramble our mind? How do we think differently? And so each one of these different letters as an acronym has, I guess, a reminder, a word that you can use. And when we come to the A word, the A word is around what could we adapt, not the other A words, but what can we adapt?
Just waiting until we get to the C word.
When I think, that's it. So when I think about adapting, I go, okay, well, you know what? Who's out there in the trade world who's already been dealing with this, risk of contamination and danger for a long time. And I go, asbestos, those asbestos that have to remove, toxic, absolutely more dangerous materials than people that might, come across COVID-19. And so we go, well, okay, well, if they can do it and they can reassure that their customers that they can do it safely, they've got some procedures and processes in place, well, surely we can do the same. And that's kind of what we're starting to see, because one of the big things that we're losing in this economy is a sense of trust. People used to trust people to do this. Now there's this fear, as you mentioned before. So what you've got to do to get this trust back is you've got to say, here's a promise. Let me show you how I can deliver it. Here's a promise. Here's how I can deliver it. Get those small wins and those small promises up there so people got the trust to go about doing it. So, hey, you know what? It's business as usual, because we've got these really good quality procedures that minimize any risk of contamination or anything else that can go wrong.
It's funny you say that, actually, because one of our probably biggest fans, Jason Spall, I know he'll definitely be listening to this. He runs an asbestos business up in the Gold Coast. He had his biggest month on record in March, and he's a true testament to like methodical process and like taking action, and like a lot of the guys and the listeners and the viewers out there, he saw this come around and like myself, like, fantastic. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Let's capitalize on it, instead of, the other mentality of, I'm doomed. It's all doom and gloom. I'm just going to wait for the government handout. But yeah, like you say, having sort of that, maybe that mindset with being used to mitigating that risk and avoiding those, contaminating sort of situations has been a good start for him. But it's interesting as well, like you were saying, like pretty much all the sport around the country and around the world has shut down. All the Olympics has been postponed and everything's been cancelled and whatever. The only sporting activity that's actually running still is horse racing. And the reason is, and one of my best mates works in horse racing, and he was telling me, he said a couple of years ago there was, I can't remember the exact outbreak. It might have been like bird flu or one of these things, and a lot of the sporting arenas were affected. Racing Australia had to implement these processes at that point, which would effectively mitigate, any risk and fear of, the races being able to be carried out. And so as a result, they've basically put in place these processes, and sure, they would have had to tweak them to suit, but effectively they've been able to keep going. And they're pretty much the only sport in the country that's doing it, based off the fact that they had these documented processes in place, and they could just say, well, here you go. This is exactly how we're going to handle it. Obviously, no one's going to the track anymore, but as people can still log on and do their betting and gambling and whatever, online now. And it's still carrying on. And I thought that was really interesting. Something that probably not a lot of people realise.
There's a really good example about having quality processes, and also thinking about this could happen again. I mean, I know, I've got a couple of clients in Singapore. One of them joined in on is a amazing company over there. And I said, how's business going for you? And he said, it's business as usual. And he was just telling us about all of the practices that they have in place. So they had almost a rotation. So the number of people that were going to the office that were doing work, and also the hospitals, because of the SARS or the aviation, or what's the avian bird flu that they had whenever it was, they were already prepared and created the hospitals and the whole sort of system around there. So good preparation is there. But what you might be finding now is people are going, I don't have the time to do it. And the question is, we're always going to be busy. And if you don't make the time to work on your business, then the business isn't going to grow, and you're going to be paid, per hour for every hour that you work, rather than thinking a little bit more cleverly about how you can start to get more leverage with what you do. Coming back to that concept of your asbestos contractor example, one of the things that's always really good to do when you're going to reinvent is think about how has the world changed for the customers, and what are they believing, what do they value, what are they scared of, what are their fears, what are their aspirations. And while those things might sound a little bit foo-foo wah-wah-ish, they actually can really determine what type of business. So classic old school business in plumbing, you've probably heard of them before, the clean plumber. A big need that this guy had come across was that people want to make sure that when a tradie comes, that they don't make a mess. That was their big primary concern. For other people, their big fear at the moment now is around how can we actually, minimize the amount of money that we're paying. Now, I know you're going, but I've just done a job for you, you've got to pay me. But you say, well, maybe we could break down the way that we do payment, just like a lot of other businesses do. They say, well, let's do a partial monthly payment that goes from, we'll do an automated deduction from your credit card.
Yeah.
That kind of relates to the B initial in the scramble, which is what could we break down or break up? So, how do we break down our payment system so that it makes it more affordable for people? There's all kinds of different things that you'd be surprised what you can do when you start to think about what is it from a customer's perspective.
It's interesting you say that actually, because that was a comment in the group only, I think last week. Someone was saying, has anyone ever used one of those, like an Afterpay or a Zip Pay programs, which inevitably enable you to do that? I think the problem that a lot of the guys are having is they won't work with tradie services. They won't work plumbers. But anyway, I know what you're saying. You can always set up your own direct debit system and get it sorted.
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, I'm not an expert in that area, but we've used a few with different proprietary forms that enable people to, let's say they're doing an online program that they can pay. We have automatic deduction that happens from their credit card and things like that. But yeah, it wouldn't take too long. But it just, that then relates to another fear that, just putting myself in the shoes of a customer is like often, they might be going, how much is this going to cost? I know you've said it's going to cost this, but we all know contingencies and things blowing out. So you might go, well, if that's a big fear, maybe we do something where we, like for strata management or where they have a sinking fund. So we might say, let's create a contingency fund that's there just in case, but if it doesn't get touched, so that it comes back to you, that might be one thing to do. Or it might be, let's have a continual wiki or, an expense update that's just going every day. So everything is automated. So the client has total transparency about this is how much money is being spent. This is how much money, this is the amount of hours. For the bean counter or the person who's really thrifty and worried about the spend, that would really put their mind at ease, and also shows transparency. Like, hey, look, we're not adding, $1,000 for each time we go down to check the pipes. We're doing this legitimately, and I think people are willing to.
It's funny, isn't it? Like so much of what I've seen come out of this situation are things that typically should have been done anyway. Like it's kind of things that, okay, now we need to carry hand sanitizer. Well, you're a tradie. You go into a work site, of course, you're a plumber. You should be carrying hand sanitizer anyway, Like there's a lot of things that sort of come as a result of the processes they're going to have to implement now, which should be done anyway. Like you say, have clarity over your payment. Well, yeah, you should be doing that anyway. Have a process which enables you to take payment offsite or book jobs in remotely. You should have probably done that anyway. Like now, all of a sudden, it's taking away a lot of these excuses. And the main excuse that I've had over the years is, I haven't got time. And now all of a sudden, businesses are sort of starting to think, well, it's not a case of not having time. It's a case of making the time, because it's either do or die in these situations. We need to adapt or we're gone. So it's been interesting, because we've been talking about a lot of these things for years and years, and now all of a sudden people come back to saying, hey, what was that thing you were talking about, the tool that enables you to do this, this and this? And so, yeah.
Yeah, so a good way to test these things, like often when people have an idea, let's say, I've been thinking about, before, pay after, whatever it might be, or I've been thinking about, doing this a new different way. Rather than, usually what people got is they've got a fear, the fear that it might not work. So is do a small version of it. So you go, okay, if I could, how could I test this out so that I don't invest everything, or, I don't spend 2 weeks creating something that no one wants. And I'm sure you guys know from, so many of those websites that you've built over the years, there's a concept which is called fake door testing. It's quite big in user experience design. And so the concept is create a end product before you actually build it, and start sharing it with your clients to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Are you interested in it? Because if they're not interested in it, then go ahead and build it. So let's say you're looking at this idea of a partial payment system. What you could do is you could reach out to either 10 of your existing clients or 10 potential clients and say, hey, look, I know, hey guys, Nils from Nils plumbing business, and I know that the times are tough for a lot of people. So we're looking at creating a new payment system which will reduce the burden by enabling people to do a certain amount and blah, 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 blah. We just wanted to get what your thoughts are, just quick thumbs up, down, or what your fears or concerns might be about it. And you know what? People will respond to that type of stuff because it goes, wow, this person's actually asking me how I want to do business as a customer rather than, you've got to do it my way or it's my way or the highway. But, there's so much choice out there that you can't afford to do that. So the concept around that is what's the smallest, version that you could somehow test and test out the market. So when we think about looking at ideas and whether people are going to buy, we say the first one, is there a willingness for the market to pay for it? That kind of makes sense because, the next one is it winnable? That is, can we actually deliver on this better than our competition? And the other one that we have is it workable? So is this an insight that customers are looking for as well? So those kind of three things, is it winnable? Is it workable? And is there a willingness for people to pay for it, can really help generating those ideas and take away that fear and risk of doing things.
It's a really good point though, that whole sell it before you build it kind of mentality. And we've done it with everything we've ever done. But then I think for a lot of the guys out there as well, we've sort of been to help them do similar things in trade businesses, whether it's adding a different service or if it's like, if they're looking at maybe, if they're a plumbing company and they're looking at maybe acquiring an electrical division, like, sell it before you build it kind of thing, like make sure that there's a need for it. That's worked really well for a lot of guys. And I think they're kind of a lot of them receptive to that. Even like events and things like that, and certainly sell the event before you go and put everything on the line and book the hotels and get some money in first,
Yeah, and often that comes down to like, what's your break even going to be? Like, let's say if you were to go down, investing in a payment scheme, like, is there a fee for it? What would be that, minimum amount that I would need to break even? There's a few little things that you can do to kind of help tweak your thinking around it. That's very important.
It's a good mentality. It's a good approach for guys anyway. I mean, we do a lot of this in the web space, of course, because we build, loads and loads of websites for tradies, and, a lot of them have ideas or they have, things they'd like to potentially, try in the business. And, it's a great opportunity for us to, split test it and say, well, let's try it and see what sort of response it gets from traffic, live traffic. You can't make that up. And then you can send a survey out to your friends and family and they'll often tell you what they think you want to hear, whereas you can't make up a live traffic test. So if you think you want to try something, cool, well, let's test it, get it out there, see what sort of response it gets. And then you've got to, you've got data, you can make decisions based off data. And that correlates, of course, into, all areas of business, like you were just saying. It doesn't necessarily have to be your website. Like it could be, split testing your payment system. It could be split testing your, the way you take inquiries or the way you book projects or the way you invoice your customers. Like all of these things can be optimized, and it should be optimized. Like that's the whole, none of these things should be seen, in my opinion, as a destination. It should always be a bit of a journey, and if that's something that you can consistently improve.
I love the fact that, you apply that, the A/B split testing to, interactions and experiences, because that's one of the big things that, you might think. I remember working with some plumbing traders a number of years ago. One of the challenges I said, so what do you do when, someone calls up? I said, oh, well, I talked to him. He said, no. Give me your script. He goes, I don't have one. Well, okay, let's do a roll call. So I did the phone call. I said, right. I said, So do you reckon that I know? I said, well, how would you know if you haven't got it written down? Or, it's sort of, there was a saying once from this guy, Lou Heckler. He was a famous speaker, professional speaker of all things, but his wife was an author, and she said, you can't edit what isn't written down.
Right.
And the same is with a process. You might have a process for doing something, but if it isn't written down or documented, you can't challenge it because it's in your head. And you think, oh, no, this is the perfect way to do it. It's like, well, how can you challenge that or test that unless that's written down? It's so good if you can actually start to think of, can we tweak this? But again, you might think, if you're looking at whether you should spend your time on it, again, you can think of three different things. So you might think tactically, technically or financially. So I often do this with ideas. So you might go, is this tactically going to work in where we need to go? Look at the decisions and what the industry is looking for. Technically, do we have the tech skills to kind of pull this off? And then financially, is there going to be a good return of investment if we're doing that? So, it might be a good tactical decision, but if there's nothing financial about it, you might go, well, maybe not right now. And if you think about when you've got a lot of stuff on or there's a lot of fear, often we end up avoiding doing what we need to do. So I often think a really simple way to think about what we should be focusing on is what we must do. Then you've got what we should do and what we could do, because quite often people are starting could do ideas, but not necessarily what we must do. So let's say, for example, if our sales have gone down, we could create an advertising campaign, but maybe that's not the right thing to do. What we must do is look at what are some alternatives or, some substitutions that we could create in our service offerings, or how we go about doing what we do for our customer, which incidentally comes back to that first letter of the acronym SCRAMBLE, which is what could we substitute? And this is what we're finding with lots of trades at the moment is they're going, well, they used to do this. Now they're going, well, could we substitute that and shift it over a little bit sideways? So, manufacturers are doing this Dyson vacuum cleaner now, in 10 days worked out how to create one of those respirator systems because, they realised there's going to be a big shortage. Tesla has done the same. Like, hey, we can build these. They're substituting for doing as well. Another trade, the biggest trade out there, but hairdressing, some great examples of that where they can't do the face-to-face, they can't touch people, but they're creating these DIY colouring kits and they're including these FaceTime sort of sessions. So they're still making money, but to substitute how they were, what product they're offering. Really important kind of thinking to do.
I'm seeing a lot of innovation in that space. A lot of gyms are now gone online, which is great. So people can work remote. And I mean, you and I know each other from the gym, and that's a brilliant example of a business that if they didn't take it online, they would be very trapped locally. And that you're stuck to location. Whereas the minute you think outside the box and put it on a platform, that all of a sudden, it's gone from being a local business to being a global business, the snap of a finger, basically.
Yeah. And I think just something that was just on the tip of my tongue, something that a lot of trades and businesses worry about is sharing their expertise. They're going, well, if I teach someone how to do this, I'm going to, now that they're going to know how to do it and they'll take my business. Like, the reality is they won't. It positions you as an expert. And, I think of pool manufacturers. I can't remember the website off the top of my head. It might have been Pools 101 or, like that. They created this, one of the biggest pool manufacturers or installers in the US. Very, very clever guy. Just started to create like this, 101 pool, everything you need to know about pools. And it just worked not only from a search engine capacity, but it set them up as being thought leaders. Like, we know pools better than anyone else, because if you got a website with nothing on there and you're not being seen as sharing information, or if you're going to do a TV sort of an article and you want to find out about pools, who are you going to go talk to? The expert who's doing it out there. The other thing that I found is that a lot of businesses are now helping other businesses. So they're going, right, well, I'm an expert in where the best. Let me give you a different example. I know it's not a trade, but it is in a sense a group of lawyers that we worked with years ago, and very, very successful business. And we said, what could you leverage? You guys are really clever at what you're doing. What could you leverage to sell or to distribute to other type lawyers that don't really compete in your territory? And so what they worked out was that there were a lot of small businesses that didn't have different processes on how to, say, for example, do a wind up of a company and the exit strategy. So they said, well, we can actually create an offer for them so that then they've got the capability to do it. We know that those types of people that are going to these small, 2 or 3 people type of legal firm aren't the same people that come to us, but we can tailor it. So they said, how can we leverage what we're already doing, but then package it and sell it to something else? So you might find, let's say if you're a big, really solid established trade and you might have, 100, 200 different tradies working for you. You might have an expertise in, say, for example, strata management and, the systems and the processes that you need to do to get in there. You might go, well, there might be some other businesses out there that are really interested in learning how to do that. We can sell that to what you might think are our competitors, but they're not. And that sort of stuff. So another, come back to that acronym L, that was for leverage. What can we leverage? What we're already doing with other people. So that was the end as you come into the L for scramble, that type of stuff. There.
I think as well, on the topic of leverage, a lot of the guys have started to realize that they've got assets within their own business that they can leverage. For years we've been trying to help these guys build databases and communicate via email automation, all this kind of stuff. There's this huge churn and burn mentality in the trades where they think it's all about getting new leads, which typically falls at which basically means your existing customers get left behind. So they think, we need new leads, but then they neglect the ones they've got. And all of a sudden they've started to realize that they've got, they can leverage a lot of the assets that they've been building over the years, whether they know it or not. Yeah. Very often they don't know it. But all of a sudden, you and I both know, like you're far more likely to re-engage a customer than gain a new one, provided you've done a good job. And so now all of a sudden there's like this revelation where they're thinking, this is great. Now I don't really have I may not have the money that I was currently spending on my Google Ads campaign, but maybe I don't even need it. Maybe I can just apply it to this and it will generate a better conversion.
It's such a good point, Matt. The science, and there are people who've done PhDs on this kind of stuff. Everyone's got a job, don't they? But they look at, the amount of work that you can get from a repeat customer and, existing customer is just, it's, like 4 to 6 times of a multiple of what you could get from a new customer. And, again, the amount of times that you go for a new customer. But we all have programmed into going for new. And here's why, and I got a bit of coaching on this one, and I'm always investing in coaching myself on different things. And I had a really good sales mentor, and he said to me, something along the lines of, he said, the reason why we don't call up old clients is because we're embarrassed. We're embarrassed because it's been a long time. That's it. That's the only reason why we don't call up old clients. And so he kind of taught me to just use that as part of your script and just go, hey, g'day, Matt. It's Nils Vesk from Nils Vesk Plumbing. You might not, it's been a long time since I did your pipes. I think it was 5 years ago. And look, to be honest, I'm a bit embarrassed, that it's been so long since we're calling. But I know that, everyone's been freaking out about coronavirus. And I just wanted to check in, see how things are going. Nothing more than that. But because it's authentic, like you're saying, hey, I'm a bit embarrassed. I haven't spoken to you for a long time. It feels, for me, when I do a call like that, it doesn't feel awkward. It feels real and it's natural. And people respond to authenticity and transparency nowadays. So that's a very good thing. And, funnily enough, we're actually kind of frantically trying to finish a book at the moment on reinvention. And one of the chapters we have in there is this whole concept of reconnect. And so, before you reinvent, you want to reconnect with your clients. You want to, find out, what do they believe? What do they value? What are they experiencing? What do they aspire to? What do they need? What are they thinking? What are they feeling and how are they behaving? And that whole concept is reaching back out and saying, g'day, I just wanted to check in. And another little script that you can use around this is something like, just to add to that, it's a bit embarrassing to say, but I was working, funnily enough, just up the street from you, or I was working on a client who had a similar job to yours. So I just thought, hey, it's been a while since I've connected. I'm a bit embarrassed about it, so I just thought I'd ring up and see how you're going. And, you don't have to go with the intention to sell something, but rather that you're just there to be for them. Because, I know in my world of experts and consultants and all of these other wanker words out there that you can think of, so many of them are just trying to sell, like, oh, you need to do this online and that. And it's not the space to be in. I've just been, delivering value, being there to help. And, it's got like a tenfold return of investment by that time, because they go, wow, this guy's not selling, he's just helping. And people go, yeah, actually, I could need a bit of that. Let's connect.
It's really, it ties into a couple of things that all the listeners and viewers out there that have been following the podcast for a while will have heard me say a million times. And it tied into what you were saying a little bit earlier as well about becoming the expert. And like for years, we've been saying to guys, and I've preached it a million times from stage and from the podcast and whatever, like it or not, you are not in the plumbing business, building business, landscaping business, electrical business. You are in the education space. And people are coming to you because they want information. And it's your responsibility to give them information and give them valuable information relevant to what they're looking for. And so, there's really creative ways that we've been able to help a lot of trade business owners create useful, valuable information in the space of things like project galleries and like useful content where it gives them a reason to, create a touch point with a customer or a prospect. So here's a wonderful, project that's completed, which is very similar to the one that you came to us, 6 months ago about. Just thought I'd share this with you because I know you're interested or I know you're looking, and we find typically, especially when you've in those situations where you've got like a longer sales cycle. So, project-based companies like builders, someone might come to you and say, hey, I'm looking at maybe getting a renovation on my house. I mean, from the time they come to you and the time they purchase could be 2 years. So being proactive throughout that time period, and giving them useful information and, like you say, not ramming a sale down their throat, but just adding little bits of value along the way. Like come the time when they're ready to make a decision, of course they're going to go with the person that's been educating them along throughout that time period and adding value, as opposed to, somebody that they're completely unfamiliar with. And we get it all the time. I mean, you look at the podcast, I mean, we get, most of our work now comes through the podcast because we're seen as experts, because we're out there constantly educating. We never sell anything. Like you'll never see anything as salesy come through in emails. All the emails are purely education, purely information. And people like and respect that because, when you look at the email, our email stats, and you've got, like a 55% open rate and all the huge engagement rate on the emails. Like you don't get that when you're constantly trying to sell shit. Like people see it and I just click and unsubscribe or whatever it is, So it's a really important paradigm shift for guys, listeners and viewers out there to appreciate that it doesn't matter what your actual core business is. People are coming to you for information, and it's your responsibility to give them that information. And the excuse of, I don't have the time, or I'm not comfortable in front of the camera, or I'm not good at writing, like it's irrelevant today. It doesn't matter. Like you've got to get over it, and you've got to make it part of your process, because if you never make it part of your process, it will always get relegated in the list of things to do. And every time you do that, one of your competitors is getting a foot up on you.
Wow. There's so many things I can piggyback on that one. I think one of the big things that why people are resistant to change is that it feels uncomfortable. Like it's different and I might not be good at it. And when it comes to the information sort of game, what you can do then is go, well, what would I be comfortable with? Let's say if I'm not comfortable being in front of the camera, what if I was behind the camera and, but I don't have time. Okay, well, what if I got a GoPro? And if I've got a hard hat on, I whack it on the top of the hard hat and I film myself doing a few things. So, I might be here, I'm putting a stud wall in, or sorry, putting some rafters up here, and we're doing some roofing today and blah, blah, blah. You can talk and it just shows things. They can see this is this new house we're doing. Bang, you turn it off. Like you don't have to even be in it, because you could be talking as if you're talking to your mates, or, interviewing today. Hey guys, look, here's our team. People love that sort of behind the scenes. When you think about, those movies or those TV shows, like, worst jobs in the world, all of those reality shows, it's people want to hear the banter. They want to experience those different things. I think we're just coming back to what is it when we work with companies around how do they reinvent their sales cycle or sales, sort of processes. One of the things that we go, what if we couldn't call it sales? What if we would call it then? And they go, well, I don't know. Well, so if you weren't selling anything, what would you want to be doing if they might use you down the line? Well, I guess they probably want to trust us. Okay, yeah. What would you need to do to create trust? Well, we need to give them an experience or an expectation, and then deliver an experience. Expectation, experience. And they might be very small little things to start with. the next thing that we might do is, okay, well, we also want to create something like inspiration, because let's say we're selling a whole project, like we want to build a house. We don't just want them to build a house. We want them to build an awesome house. So part of our game then goes into how do we inspire them and how do we motivate them and what are we going to do then? So again, you might be driving through, you might do a catch up with an old client and go, hey, Matt, I know it's been a few years since we did this job, but I'd love to, if you're okay with it, give you a bit of an interview just to find out what your thoughts are and how the house is holding up and blah, blah, blah. And if I can just, take a few photos or a bit of video. And then you've got something that's inspirational, because people aren't buying a house, they're buying a home.
Correct.
There's that saying, yeah. And so you go, well, this is how people live and created. And so you're trying to think of those things. You're trying to lay the fears. You're trying to build trust. You're trying to build motivation and inspiration. The other thing that can really work well is to surprise a client from out of the blue. Some marketing mates that do this amazingly well, where their whole business is about how they help their clients engineer surprise. So, a surprise might be, because you might be going, well, we built this house for them 10 years ago or, 5 years ago. Well, they're not going to build another house until, maybe never, because they're retired. But you might go, well, what could be a really cool value add that might at least get them to think about you and talk about you? So what marketing and part of the sales stuff is about, what's remarkable. So you might go, let's say you might send them a branded, wood engraved, on the handle hammer that goes out. Look, I know, you're probably still thinking, you're probably thinking around, maybe you're thinking about building a cubby house for your kids, because your kids probably 12 years old by now. Here's a little gift for you. Still remember the time that we did stuff, hope things are well. Little surprise things can work really well. And especially now, humor is a really big reconnection point. People are so serious that, people are looking for funny stuff. If you look at the statistics of what people are renting on things like Netflix or watching on Netflix, they're all looking for comedies, because
is that right?
Some relief from all of the doom and gloom that's out there. Just stop watching the news. It's just not worth it.
Well, mate, I've said this again for years and years. I mean, I haven't read a newspaper or watched the news or listened to traditional radio in probably close to six years now. And I just don't see the point. There's no value in it. It's always, and you would know, you've been in the media quite a bit as well. Like, there's typically, when you're in the media, it's all they want to gear the conversation to is clickbait. And, it's soul destroying when you're there to talk about something really valuable, and all they want to do is steer the conversation to something that's going to get clicks. And it's just like, I just don't subscribe to it. And so, and we say that to our guys as well. We say, there's all this hype now, like, the trickle effect and the waterfall effect of a lot of the stuff they read in the newspapers is the reason that a lot of businesses have started to slow down. For example, all of a sudden there's this stuff, everyone's going to stop spending, or everyone's going to stop working, there's going to be lockdown. And then all of a sudden business owners hear this and they go, so people are going to stop spending because I read it in the newspaper, or because I saw it on television. We need to cut costs. Let's go cut some of our costs. And they go away and they'll do something like, they'll go and cut all their marketing budget, put all their campaigns on hold, and then they'll go, oh, well, they were right, everything did slow down. And you're like, well, no shit, you just cut your only source of lead generation of something that you've watched on television. But all the smart guys out there, they're like, I mean, and my buddy Jason, the asbestos guy, talk about ebbing and flowing, right? Like, and we've always been preaching this: when people ebb, you flow, and like, so all of a sudden, all of his competitors started pulling all their marketing budget out of asbestos removal on the Gold Coast, and they've gone and doubled down on it. Biggest month in history. And it's like, well, of course, like, you don't have to subscribe to this shit. Like, I've been saying it for years, create your own economy. If you're going to go on, we're lucky, I suppose, here in Australia, because like most global, things that happen, GFCs, so on and so forth, we'll scathe through relatively unscathed, like we always do. I mean, there's a lot of listeners and viewers out there in North America and around the place that are probably not as fortunate. But then again, we get a lot of listeners and viewers in the North American market that are absolutely killing it as well, because they're reinventing themselves and they're thinking outside of the box, and they're taking this as an opportunity and really, saying, this is my time. This is a once in a lifetime chance here for my business,
Yeah. I mean, talking about some North American trades, I'll talk about automotive trade. Some of some great little stories of some mechanics doing really cool things where they go, okay, well, people are scared about getting their car serviced. Why? Because they're worried it's going to be, that it's going to get contaminated. So I can't remember off the top of my head the name of this one mechanic that I've been looking into, but they basically just said, look, this is what we're going to pick up the car from your place. We'll work on it. We'll do it, and then we will disinfect the whole car and return it back to you. So it was like, okay, well, it might cost them an extra, $50 to do, or whatever it might be, $100, but the client's going, okay, well, no one else is getting their car serviced, but because this guy is doing it, they can do it again. Very simple, just kind of changing that mindset. Just one thing that kind of came into my mind that is, I think, always really worthwhile for businesses to do around the news. And the one thing I do for news is I will create a Google News alert.
Yeah,
and I do it around specific topics that enable me to do things. So right now, I'm doing, obviously, finishing this book on reinvention, but I've been doing a lot of stories around reinvention. And so I have a number of newsletters. So if you don't know how to do it, you go to Google, just write Google News Alerts, and enables you to put a particular type of topic that you want to do. So you might go, let's say, problems with plumbing problems, or any kind of topic that you can think of, and you can choose how often the Google News alerts come to you. But basically for me, I've got stories about businesses reinventing themselves, businesses thinking out of the box. Now, not all of the news alerts that come to me are good, but it's given me some really good, without having to search for them. Google is doing the searching for me and delivering them to my actual box there. So if you want to look at ways that you can use the news for yourself, that's one of the things that you can do. One of the other things that really help reinvent businesses is we get them into how to create PR releases. Now, I'm not a press release expert, but we've done enough over the years that they've all got a similar kind of template. But yeah, just the power of, as you said, I've got on Channel 10, Channel 9, BRW, all of the major players, usually just by doing one kind of particular press release that was topical that I'd found from one of these news alerts, and then came in with, here's an expert's opinion. So you could be doing that same sort of thing where you could create a press release, which might be going something around why now is the best time to do home reinvention or, home renovation. And because people are at home thinking about what could we do better, they're looking at, I haven't noticed the crack in the cornice up there, or shit, I really should do something with this tiling. And these are the opportunities that you could actually be starting to, remember I said inspiration and motivation, creating some pieces for the media that go, actually not, yeah. And so you could create a press release to go, why people are starting, already planning their home renovations. Why? Because they're spending more time doing stuff. So again, it's about changing your thinking, but using different parts of the news if you want to.
Yeah, I like it. Nice one. Well, mate, I think they're pretty much drawing to a close here. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'd like to maybe just say what each one of those words are, just to summarize the scramble technique here. So we've been through probably about, 6 of the 8 of them, but so the acronym. So again, you can use this just to kind of bing, bang, bang, prompt some ideas. S is for substitute. C is what could we combine. R is what we might reverse. A is for adapt or add. M is to multiply. B is for break up or break down. L is for leverage. E is for eliminate. We can share this with you, so you can share with your listeners and your audience there. But yeah, what I really just wanted to sort of leave you with from my perspective is that the world has changed. Okay, don't like it, but just adapt. And if you're uncomfortable, just say to yourself, "Ooh, this is what change feels like. It's okay. I'm just changing." And the other thing is that this is, it is a level playing field. So many of those big players that used to go about doing things have kind of, dropped down. So if you're small and you want to go big, this is a really good opportunity to start thinking about it. You know what? I think we're going to come out of this much, much better. But again, it's your choice. You could complain about it or actually profiteer from it.
And it's also a good opportunity for guys that are big and want to go small. We've noticed a lot of people doing that. Like they're cutting back on staff, they're cutting back on overheads. Sometimes they get to a point where I've got loads of clients that have had the same situation, and they've got to a point where they've got more trucks on the road and they're making less profit. And so for a lot of guys, I don't realize, okay, maybe this is a good opportunity for us to go back to where we were more profitable. And there's so many serendipities that come out of situations like this. All of a sudden people are losing their jobs. For years and years, we've spoken with, trade business companies all over the planet. And the consistent issue that people have had is staff, team. Like there's no talent. We can't find the right people. We grow, but we can't find the right people. Now, all of a sudden, you're in a situation where people are being let off and there's talent that's going to be available everywhere for the business owner that's proactive and actually going out there and, recruiting in these times. And we're doing the same thing. We're hiring like crazy because we know that like all of a sudden, there's an amazing amount of talent out there where there wasn't before. And so again, it's paradigm shift, ebbing and flowing. When everyone's ebbing, letting people go, we're like, well, a lot of the smart guys out there are like, perfect, great time to hire. Let's go hire people. So, it's just there's an amazing amount of opportunities there.
Yeah.
So, Nils, your website, ideaswithlegs.com, you guys are doing virtual reinvention sessions. So, for any of you listeners and viewers out there that are interested in getting a bit more of, I suppose, a bit more understanding about how reinvention might practically look to your business, I can't encourage enough to get in contact with Nils. Like he's been on the podcast a million times. If you haven't heard his episodes, there'll be links to it within this one, but you really should do that. Take up that opportunity. support@ideaswithlegs.com is the email, and the website again, ideaswithlegs.com. Nils, thank you so much for your time once again. It's been awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Mate, looking forward to the book release. When's that likely to come out?
I reckon it's going to be finished in the writing part in a few weeks' time, and then it's into the battle with the literary agents and the publishing. Yeah, usually we've done self-publishing in the past. This time, just because I think it's the right time for this book, it's a good publishing model. So yeah, watch this space, but hopefully sooner rather than later.
Well, keep us posted because, as I say, it's 16th of April. I'm recording this, and this podcast will go out towards the end of May. So who knows? We'll probably have a bit closer there, but I'll definitely let me know when the book's out and I'll post it in the group. It will be on Amazon, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be all of those channels there.
All right, lovely. Well, mate, thanks for your time again. And listeners out there, that's a wrap. And if you've got any further conversations or if you had any experiences about anything that we've spoken about or any cool tips or tricks or tactics that you've learned in the space of innovation, head across to the Facebook group and post those in the comments when you see this podcast come out, because I'm sure Nils and I would both love to see what you guys are doing to help reinvent yourselves in these times. Anyway, Nils, thanks again. We will chat to you again in the future, no doubt.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.